Hello, good morning. Just get myself going here. Okay, well, hopefully this is coming through. I can't find it on here. Hang on. Find it on here. Alright, so yes, welcome to Winslow Christian Fellowship Bible Study Live. My name's Colin. I'm the pastor of the fellowship, and it's good to see you. I'm looking at this passage today. So it's Mark chapter 6 verses 1 to 6. And let's read it. Okay, he went away from there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offence at him. And Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honour, except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household." And he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he marvelled because of their unbelief. And he went about among the villages teaching. So, I wonder if he went about among the villages teaching should actually be amongst the next section, where it says he called to the 12 and began to send them out. That's a kind of, does that belong more with that section rather than with he went about among this section? There we go, I've got it on my phone now. Struggled to find it on my phone. Okay, so so it's verses 1 to 6, and shorter passage, and it's one of these passages that I think people you preach on them, and then people afterwards will say, "I'm surprised you were able to get so much out of that." But then that's how the Bible works, actually, is that it's full of sort of stuff. You read it and you think, "Oh yeah, I read that." There's not a lot to really know and understand and think about there. But there's a lot there you've just got to look at it. So I'm thinking that so what I do is this Tuesday morning is when I really get going on studying a passage in the Bible, and Monday I look at it and I decide exactly what am I going to preach on. Usually, well, it'll be the next passage on from what I preached before, unless I'm starting a new series, but it's just deciding, well, how far am I going to go, and So at this one I looked at it yesterday and thought, yeah, just verses 1 to 6, and I was tempted to go further because of that thing of, yeah, what is there to say in 1 to 6, but I suppose it is a little section of its own where Jesus's identity is challenged, isn't it? That's the thing. Who is this man? That's the question. Is this not the carpenter's son, the son of Mary? And actually, we've been looking through Mark's Gospel, seeing everything about who Jesus is. So it's quite a significant moment. Let's just write something down here. In terms of the overview of that passage. So I set my Logos up on a Monday as well, this Bible study software, Logos. I set it up with 4 notes that cover the whole passage before I start going through verse by verse. And over the course of the week, I gradually fill those notes in. Having spent the first 5 chapters of Mark showing us that Jesus is the Son of God and the Messiah. He now comes home and they get his identity completely wrong. It's like that thing where you go away to university and people get to know you as an adult, and then you go back home and the people that know you there all know you as a child, and they still carry on treating you like a child. It's a bit of a shock. Going away, coming back, that kind of thing. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the sort of basic questions of this passage before we go through it verse by verse, in terms of overviewing it. Who, what, actually let's do where next. Who, where, what, how, why. Who is in the passage? He. That's Jesus, isn't it? Jesus. The disciples followed him. Verse 6, on the Sabbath began to teach in the Sabbath the many who heard him. People in the synagogue. So you've got Jesus, the disciples, there's people in the synagogue who heard him. Many who heard him were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hand? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary? So Mary, she might not be present at that moment, but she's mentioned. Mary, James, Joseph, Judas, Simon. These must be common names, because Judas, Simon, James, they're all Jesus' brothers. Although, is there another James in the New Testament, or is that just one of Jesus' brothers? Jesus' sisters. They're, for some reason, females, not given names here. And they took offence at him, and Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honour except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household. So that's all people that have been mentioned, hometown relatives. And he could do no mighty work there, except he laid his hands on a few sick people. and he marvelled because of their unbelief. So who? Jesus, the disciples, people in the synagogue, Mary, James, Joseph, Judas, Simon, Jesus' sisters, sick people, anybody else, anyone else? This is what I always ask. I think I've read it and I've seen what's there, and then ask anything else. His disciples. Don't think there is. Looking at it. What is the wisdom given to him? So I mean, there's a reference to God there. Subtle. The fact that they say, "What is this wisdom given to him?" or "Where did this man get these things? What is this wisdom given to him?" The answer to that question is God. So it's implied God is subtly implied in verse 2. That's stretching it, isn't it? But it's worth just pushing, looking over the passage again, seeing, well, what else? The carpenter. Was Jesus actually a carpenter? And we know he's the son of the carpenter. So Joseph is again implied, not obviously spoken about, in verse 3. The carpenter reference refers to Jesus' parentage. So presumably Jesus must have worked as a carpenter after his dad died. Hence he was known as the carpenter. Although if I hover over the G, I don't know if you see that coming out, Matthew 13:55, that's just a similar reference, so it's not an alternative translation to say carpenter's son. A prophet, that's him. He could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. It's interesting that laying your hands on sick people and healing them is not a mighty work. And he marvelled because of their unbelief. Okay, so that's the who. Who? Now we're going to look at the where. He went away from there. Where's there? From where he was before, which was by the lake. He's just left the shore of the Sea of Galilee, is it? Where was all this happening? This was happening so this is the story of Jairus and the woman with the bleed. It's by the sea, by the lake, Galilee, Maybe we have to go back a bit further, do we? Because it doesn't actually specify which town he's in at that point. So we know that he crossed over to the Gerasenes, but before then it was the storm. Before then he was teaching. Where was he teaching? Because he's back in that place. He began to teach beside the sea. Beside the sea. A large crowd gathered about him. It doesn't say where he is at this point. Yeah, so wherever he was beside the sea. In verse 5 he came to Gerasenes, then he went back to the other side of that sea, and now in chapter 6 he went away from there and came to his hometown. He's just left the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus' hometown. Now the commentary there, verse 1, it says Jesus left Capernaum. Just here, Jesus left Capernaum. So that was where he was. How do we know he was there? It must be further back. Certainly Capernaum's been mentioned. I obviously couldn't find the reference. I'll have to find that. Later. While Mark does not name Nazareth, he has earlier indicated that this was the village from which Jesus came. Verse 1 says, chapter 1 verse 9. Right. I know it's fussy to try and make sure that we've got this. At that time Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee. Right, so it suggests that, yeah, Jesus' hometown is still Nazareth at that point. But where's the Capernaum? There's the Capernaum reference here. And began to teach. So Jesus again entered Capernaum at the beginning of chapter 2, healing the paralytic. Once again Jesus went out beside the lake. So he's still in Capernaum but beside the lake. So it's all kind of happening around there. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake. Jesus went up on a mountainside. But this is all happening within Capernaum, into the house. Then again Jesus began to teach by the lake, and that's the passage that really runs through to, then he crossed over the lake, went to the Gerasenes, came back, met Jairus and the woman with the bleed, raised the girl who was dead, and then he left there, Capernaum, and went back to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. Okay, takes a while to answer these questions, but you know, you get the basics, and then the rest of it becomes a bit clearer in your mind. So, Capernaum and Nazareth. What we want is a map. Let's have a look at this map. Huh? Why did it open it like that? There, that's better. There's Nazareth, there's Capernaum. What are we looking at? It's a funny angle. So this must be the River Jordan. There's the Decapolis. So, yeah. Is it? Anyway, Capernaum's by the lake. Gadara, the Gazari. Benefit of this live stream, you get to see just how inarticulate I can be. So there's the map to look at. Is there any other wares about this? So he's gone from Capernaum to his hometown, and he's in the synagogue. So the synagogue, that's where all this is, these questions are being asked, in the synagogue. And he said that, and then it says he could not do any miracles there, presumably meaning Nazareth, rather than just the synagogue, because that's where the questions were being asked. Does the word there in verse 5 refer to synagogue or to the whole of Nazareth? I'd assume it was Nazareth. That's not how you spell Nazareth. So that's the where, the what. What happens? Jesus took his disciples home on the Sabbath, went to synagogue. Hang on, let's put it in steps. Went to the synagogue. Oh yeah, they've got the when, haven't we? Don't forget to ask when. After teaching powerfully to many people, performing many miracles, and healing people, all proving his authority. But it happened in Capernaum. Now it's the Sabbath. So yeah, go back to the what. Jesus took his disciples home. On the Sabbath they went to the synagogue. Jesus taught there. The people couldn't believe that the kid they knew was so wise and miraculous, so wise and powerful. The people were offended. Jesus could not perform big miracles, but he did heal a few people. So that's just kind of bullet pointing the events, the what. To be honest, the question how, I don't know how you answer this one. How did it all happen? Don't know. Why did it happen? Well, there's a clear why, that Jesus' miraculous abilities were limited because of the unbelief of the people. But even that didn't stop him from healing those who needed it. Yeah. Amazed. There's a couple of amazeds there. Teach miracles. The people were amazed at his teaching. Jesus was amazed at their lack of faith. Here it says they were astonished in the ESV. Sorry. So yeah, verse 2, the people were astonished at Jesus. And that is eklepso. he marvelled. Alright, thaumazo. So NIV translates those two words, but the same. They're both amazed, but they are different words as the ESV has it. Astonished and marvelled. Still, they're both shocked. The people are shocked at Jesus' amazing wisdom and power. Jesus is shocked at their unbelief. Right. So I've just gone through it, and now I'm just going to start doing verses verse by verse. So verse 1, he went away from there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. So Jesus left Capernaum for Nazareth. Why? He probably didn't want a holiday, because he took the disciples with him. So he's still on the job. But naturally, he wants to benefit his own family and friends he grew up with. Jesus has been blessing people in Capernaum, which must be a big hub town. But it's only natural he'd want to go and bless the people of Nazareth. Disciples followed him because that's what they do, and that's how they learnt, by watching and listening to him. Eventually he's going to send the disciples out to get on with the work. And it's interesting that just before doing that, he goes home. So that's going to be the next section, verse 7 to 13, where he sends them out 2 by 2. And so whenever you enter a house, stay there until you depart from there, and if any place will not receive you, and they will not listen to you when you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. So he's preparing them for rejection. Preparing the disciples for rejection by showing them his own rejection at the hands of those who supposedly know him best. The disciples would probably have seen the pain you went through. Hearing the people of Nazareth be offended by him. Must have been painful. Okay, so let's go on to verse 2, which is, and on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? It's question fest. Jesus is not trained rabbi yet. He went into the synagogue and started to teach. Was it the custom that anyone could teach? Or was Jesus doing something unusual? Could if somebody came into church and said, I've got a sermon, I'd say, well, my job is to preach and to protect this pulpit. I don't want the church to be taught any old nonsense. I need to talk to you about what you're going to preach first. But here he is turning up and getting up there and teaching. So was that an unusual thing? I don't know. This is what the commentaries are for, but we come to the commentaries later and dig deep into them. So the people start asking these questions, right? They're astonished. The people who heard him were astonished. Absolutely. Which is eclepso. Eclepso. Astonish. 13 times. 4 in Matthew, 5 in Mark, 3 in Luke, 1 in the book of Acts. And then the rest of the Bible. Don't know if you can see these things. Probably not showing up the what I'm doing right now, but amaze, astonish. Okay. Eclepso. To strike out signifies to be exceedingly struck in mind, to be astonished. Okay. They are astonished. Shocked. Shocked. They didn't expect this. But it's not the fact that he was tippy. It's not the fact that he was teaching that shocks them. Is what he's saying. Where did this man get these things? They ask questions, don't they? Where did he get these things? Jesus appears to have access to knowledge that is unusual. What they don't realise is that he's a prophet and speaks for God. That's where he gets his knowledge from. Where did he get these things? What is this wisdom? Difference between knowledge and wisdom. Not just knowledgeable, but wise. They don't expect a carpenter to be so wise, and probably think he's a bit young. To have a quality that tends to come with age. Respect your elders, because they're wise. What is this wisdom? How are such mighty works done by his hand? So they're asking about the miracles. How does he do these works? Presumably this is the miracles they're asking about, which they haven't seen but have heard about. Are their questions actually... Oh, Jill says, how old was he? How old was he? Well, he's around 30, I think. So he's started hanging around, choosing his disciples when he was 30-ish. Now, whereabouts do we learn that? Somewhere else in one of the Gospels. How old was Jesus at this point? 30. So, I mean, somebody who's in their 30s can be wise. But yeah, if he's speaking like some 70-year-old patriarch, then that would probably be a bit offensive. I mean, it says that they were offended to hear a youngster who's and he's not started a family, has he? And I think they probably looked down on him because he was a single guy. When you think the normal pattern was you get married, you have children, you have your family, and there's Jesus not doing those things, but speaking like some kind of grandfather figure. Good question. But yeah, whereabouts in the Bible does it say how old Jesus was? I know it's somewhere, but I can't off the top of my head say which verse and whereabouts. What was I in the middle of thinking? Where did he get these things? What is his wisdom? How does these work? Oh yeah, are these questions actually challenging the reality of it all? Are they questioning whether Jesus actually performed the miracles, whether his unique knowledge is just made up, whether his wisdom is just an act. Is he wise? Or is he clever? Because there's a difference between those two things, and one is wisdom is more honest than cleverness, which can be quite deceptive. And I guess I'm wondering if that's the kind of attitude behind the questions, because of course Jesus is astonished or marvelled because of their unbelief. They don't believe in him. So these questions are not just, oh wow, isn't this amazing that young Jesus has grown up to be an amazing wise miracle worker and teacher. They're asking, I don't actually think this is real. I think the guy's a big con man. Which is how people think of him today. Let's put that in the application illustration section. Those closest to Jesus seemed to think he was a big con artist. A lot of people today are suspicious of Christianity and think it's a big con. Can't blame them, really. Bearing in mind the things the church has done down through the ages and in modern times. Scandals, and money grabbing naturally make us question if all the spirituality is just one big con. How do we demonstrate authenticity and authenticity? And that's the word I was thinking of, integrity, in the face of such evidence to the contrary. It's hard, isn't it? And Jesus himself is thought of in that way. In this day and age. Alright, so that's good. Let's go back to, where are we? Verse 3. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us? And they took offence at him. So this is why they're questioning if Jesus can really be what he appears to be, because they know him so well. They saw him grow up. They know the family. And his background. So they think they know Jesus, therefore all the rumours that point to him being the Messiah, 3 S's, as Son of God, must be fake news. That's it. When we think, actually, again, let's go back to application. When we think we know Jesus, it can stop us getting to know him for real. We all have presuppositions, and there are a lot of presuppositions about Jesus going around. So, if you think you already know it all, then you are not going to be open to learning about him for yourself from the source, which is the Bible. Why do his sisters not get names here? Poor girls. You get you get James, Joseph, Judas, Simon. Four brothers get named. Could have just said James and the other brothers, and then given his sisters, Elizabeth or Mary or whatever their names were. Why was that? It's just Jewish culture. The emphasis on the male members of the family, patriarchs. Let's go back to verse 3. So they know what job Jesus did. They know his mum, and they name 4 of his brothers. They don't name the sisters. Are not his sisters here with us? Jewish culture was very male-centric. Bottom line is that they are offended. Right, so is this because a young guy was speaking with the wisdom of age? Was he teaching older people? Presuming to be in a position of authority, which, as far as they were concerned, he had not earned. Well, that would certainly connect it with the passages we've just been looking at, the various miracles that show he's got authority over nature and over evil and over sin and over death. If they're offended at his teaching, they obviously don't believe in any of those miracles. He's proved his authority, but they don't believe in his authority. Let's go on to verse 4. And Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honour, except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household. So Jesus is calling himself a prophet. They obviously don't think he is a prophet. which is a lower benchmark, really. He's the Messiah, he's the Son of God. He's the Messiah. So they obviously don't think he's a prophet. So would certainly not think of him as the Son of God. Only as the son of Joseph and Mary. As a result, he is not honoured, as he has been in Capernaum. Interesting, he was not honoured in the what's the name of the place? Gerasenes. Go back to what was it? The Gerasenes. He was not honoured in the Gerasenes. The people asked him to leave them because they feared his power after he cast out the demons into a herd of pigs, which would have caused financial distress to the pig owner. But that, at least they had enough respect and fear for him. They respected and feared him. Nazareth appears to simply dismiss him. And probably that's the problem with our culture, isn't it? And the real reason the gospel gets so little response. It's not that people are opposed to Christianity, it's just that they don't care. They dismiss it as not important. It would be easier to evangelize an atheist, an outright atheist, society, and to reach this agnostic society. Yes, so outright rejection is easier to evangelise than just kind of apathy. Apathetic agnostic society. What's the time? 5 past. I'm gonna keep going. I know I tend to do an hour, but we're nearly there, and it's a chance to actually do the whole passage. This is only the first steps, by the way. I then go back and keep looking at it and working it through and trying to see what the main message is and how to turn it into a sermon with 3 clear headings all beginning with the same letter. No, actually that's not necessarily true, but often that's the way to structure it to make it easier for people to climb the ladder. You've got to put some good rungs on it. So verse 5, and he could do no mighty work there except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. So their unbelief in Jesus appeared to limit his power. Yeah. Is that how it works? Can Jesus only, or does Jesus draw power from belief? That can't be it. Jesus' power comes from God. But miracles have never been a way to win unbelievers over, but to teach believers. Jesus is still using his power to heal, because that's the compassionate thing to do. What makes a miracle a mighty work as opposed to just a miraculous work? Obviously the healings were not mighty works. Perhaps the 4 preceding miracles were mighty works, things beyond ordinary healings, in which Jesus demonstrated his authority. So he demonstrates and proves his authority to those who already believe in him, but to those who reject his authority, he won't prove it. Presumably because there's no point. There's no point trying to convince them with mighty works because I'll come back to that. I don't know why. I could guess at why. And he marvelled because of their unbelief. Jesus marvelled at their unbelief. Which, let's do it, it mirrors their astonishment at his teaching. We've grown accustomed to unbelief and see it almost as the default. Surely the existence of God is a no-brainer. And Jesus' teachings, along with the testimony of the Bible, should make belief the norm. But we live in a stubborn society that thinks it knows all about Jesus already. Alright, well, that's as much as I'm going to do right now today. Thank you for watching. Hope that's been helpful. I'm going to finish there. Thanks for your question, Jill. Glad that you were able to join me and join in with the excitement. I'll see you on Sunday when hopefully this will be a bit more coherent and there'll be a message based on this passage. Okay,